Okay. All right. I think we're live. Oh, I forgot to shut that door. Hold on. All right. There we go.
Boy. Yep. There it is.
Yeah.
There you are.
We're back. Did they see me in my shorts? I was really hoping that thought I should have worn.
No.
I think we're clear.
I think it's just the waist
All right.
up. So
All right. Well,
no one would know that you were wearing long pants.
That's true. Yes. Long pants. I'm wearing long pants, I swear. Welcome to the Pious Reflections podcast. We are going to be talking about whether or not Charlie Kirk was actually becoming a Catholic or not. And I am joined by my wife because she decided to ask if she could be on for this one. And I already told my joke, and she said I couldn't tell the joke once she came on here. But in other words, I'm a submissive husband. Let the reader understand. But before we all start talking about the good old Catholic conversion stuff, I want to kind of preface this a little bit because there's a lot of back and forth on the internet right now about how could Catholics speculate about Charlie Kirk's conversion at a time like this, and there's a lot of Catholics who are kind of like, he was definitely going to become a Catholic. And what we find today is a lot of evidence that supports both sides. And I will give you my take, but that's not my goal in this whole conversation. My goal in this conversation is to help Protestants and Catholics understand the way we talk about conversion and coming into the church so that we don't hate each other. That's basically the goal here, because there were some pretty kind of mean stuff said about Catholics. And, you know, the Andrew Clavette came out on the Alex Clark podcast called Culture Apothecary, which I can never remember. So if TPUSA sees this, please rebrand that, because it is so hard to remember exactly what it is. Alex Clark, not hard. But Culture Apothecary is difficult. I get it. You know, you want to have health and wellness of the culture. But anyway, it's not what I would do. But Clavette, when he was asked, was Charlie becoming Catholic, just said no. And a lot of Protestants would say, ha, we got the death nail. There it is. Game over. Catholics, you lose. You over-speculated. But all Catholics will say, and are continuing to say, and I received text messages of people still saying, I think he was going to become Catholic. And there's reasons for that. It's not just that they're wishful thinking. But Protestants do have a point, given some of the public things that have been said. And Catholics have been, frankly, sharing Charlie Kirk's quotes that were favorable to Catholicism out of context. And we're going to watch those clips today in context. And I'm going to talk about them with my lovely wife. And you will be convinced of our position by the end. If not, leave a comment, and then we'll troll you in the comments. But the Protestants do have a point, because it is unfair for some Catholics to overstate that Charlie was going to become a Catholic, especially considering how evangelical he was, and a lot of his struggles with papal infallibility, Marian dogmas like her sinlessness or immaculate conception, her assumption into heaven. And he says this explicitly in the context of those Marian venerations. That being said, Charlie also had some things going on in his private life that contradict what you would do if you really struggled with those things. If they were really a moral inhibition to Catholicism, then why would you go into a Catholic church with Jack Posobiec, for example, and pray for 45 minutes in front of relics of Padre Pio? Okay, so there's just some disconnects here. And so Catholics also have a point. If Erica Kirk came out tomorrow and said, no, Charlie was definitely not becoming Catholic, Catholics would still probably say, no, I think he was. And my goal today is to explain why that is the case and why that is actually reasonable. to say. People might think, well, that's insensitive. After all, she's his wife and these kinds of things. But what I want to do is move towards the actual cases of people who do convert and talk about how this actually lines up with the internal wrestling that happens when somebody looks into Catholicism. Because every prominent Christian that has wrestled with Catholicism will tell you one thing, and it's true of every single one. It is, I did not want to be Catholic. And so that is very different than a lot of times the decision to become Christian in the mere Christianity sense, or Protestant Christianity, because baked into the cake is that you can change denominations if you don't like it. You don't have to leave Christianity if you feel like things have gone astray. And if you become a Catholic, you know that part of your commitment is, I have to be willing to die for this church the way that Christ died for this church. Even if this church were to hurt me, or if this church were to cause my life distress, I'm expected to take up that cross in the same way of imitating my Savior. So, with that being said, I'm going to switch back to the video follows audio, and we should be going. There's the lovely bride of my life.
Am I in there?
Yeah, well, you were.
Oh, look at that.
We got to get used to that.
There I am.
It's all right. What's your mug for the night?
Oh, I'm going with St. Thomas Aquinas. 3 things are necessary for the salvation of man: to know what he ought to believe, to know what he ought to desire, and to know what he ought to do.
There you go. And I chose Dostoevsky. Nothing in this world is harder than speaking the truth. Nothing easier than flattery, which I feel like is very appropriate considering we're talking about Charlie Kirk. So the goals of this conversation and this kind of presentation is to bring understanding, to give you the case against Charlie's conversion so that everybody has all the details of that, but also to conclude with the case for why I think that if Charlie had a full life, I think that there is a good chance he would have become Catholic. So do you have any thoughts before we dive in?
Oh, I'm just excited to see all the clips you've got.
All the clips?
I know you've been working hard down here.
I have been.
Curating things for my enjoyment and everybody else's enjoyment. So I'll save my commentary until I see some of these juicy bits.
So here's the first thing that you're going to see going around the internet, and this is actually on the cover of our episode. So let me see if I can get this up there. Oh, that's us. There we go.
There it is.
Awesome, we got it. All right, so this is Charlie Kirk. I believe this is the...
Isn't that the Immaculate?
Yeah, the Shrine of the Immaculate
Conception in DC?
Which is ironic because he, as you'll see, we'll play a clip of him disregarding the doctrine of the Immaculate Conception. And let me see what I've got up here next. This is him actually in Mass. This is something that has been going around social media. The Catholics have been fond of this image, and I have actually been to this parish. It is a parish. It is not a basilica or a cathedral or any of those cool fancy things like this. It's not like that, but it's kind of like that. And if you look here, I think I have some photos of me. Yes. So I have been in that church. So right here, can they see that? Yeah. So
yeah.
Charlie would have been right over here. And this is one of the most beautiful parishes I have ever been in. You literally feel completely and totally dwarfed. You've got all these saints up here. And this is
And what is
massive.
that parish?
This is called St. Bernadette Parish in Scottsdale, Arizona. And and I actually did not want to be in Scottsdale, Arizona when I was doing this, but it was for work. So here's some more stuff. So those ceiling tiles up there are all the mysteries of the gospel. So you see the crucifixion there. You see the flight to Egypt. You see all, like, it's like 15 different images of the gospel up there. It's really cool. Over here is a picture of Bernadette at the grotto and Mary. For those Protestants that don't know, Mary, there's a Marian apparition in France. I can't remember what city it's in.
It's in
Lourdes.
Lourdes.
Yeah, Lourdes. Our Lady of Lourdes is what this is. It's famous. There's like 7 million people that pilgrim to that site. It's beautiful. I don't have pictures of it, but you can look it up. On the left, you'll see the murals over there. So anyway, and then there's a little guy right here. I mean, so you can see the size of this. In fact, actually, I'm going to take it off our little overlay here real quick so you can see the full thing. You can see this. These are huge, and this guy right here, and his like that painting is just massive. I mean, he is like maybe the size of like Bernadette, right? Well, Bernadette's actually bigger than he is. So
Yeah.
anyway, it's very cool place. What do I got next? Okay, so now we're going to get into some of these quotes. So people saw these things going around online, and they made some comments like this. And Meg Basham is one of the bigger names that was out there talking about this. And she said, and again, I don't mean to pick on Megan Basham. She was also on here the last time we did an episode together. But she's great. So, this isn't a knock on her. It's just a critique. So, no harm, no foul. So, but if you respond, Megan, I will totally take the free advertisement for our podcast, because that would be an honor. To be trolled by Megan Basham would be an honor. But Megan does a lot of great journalism, especially in the liberal Christianity stuff on the evangelical side. She said, I want to address some claims that Charlie Kirk was looking to convert to Catholicism. First, this is completely false. I don't think it's completely false.
Which, I mean, it's just, I'm sure we'll get into it, but it seems like there were plenty of people close to him that did not agree with that position. So,
well, I mean,
I'm just saying the jury seems to be a little bit hung on this one.
It's definitely not like completely false.
Right.
Like even when we play the clip of Andrew Clovet, like he says no, but he very much qualifies it. What were you going to say?
Right. No, I was thinking about Michael Knowles and anyway, we'll talk about it later, I'm sure.
Yeah. But. Well, you can say what you're going to say.
Okay. So on one of the more recent Pints with Aquinas episodes that aired, I mean, within a day or two of Charlie Kirk being murdered, Charlie Kirk came up in their discussion, and of course it was all pre-recorded, so they had no idea that he was going to be assassinated. But they both kind of do this wink, wink, nod, nod at one another about Charlie Kirk being on the verge of converting to Catholicism. Did they say on the road? He says
on the road.
Okay.
I think he said, I think he's on the road.
It was, I'm just saying it was.
And he said, I don't want to speak for him. And then he quickly.
Right. But they both have this little secret smile at one another. And it just seemed like they both had this. Yeah. And it's important to know that's before he was shot. Right. So. I think that's important, because a lot of times, like people like Meg Basham here are essentially saying, that, hold on, I got to get this over here. There we go. Are essentially saying that the people are completely blowing us out of proportion and basically are having an emotional response to Charlie's death, which I think is wrong. Like completely false is way overblown. Right. She says, and personally, I find it appalling that some are using this occasion of his death to promote their own agendas, which I don't know. I don't know if that's a Catholic thing or if that's like other things, but she later talks about Candace Owens, so I think she's mostly thinking of Candace Owens here. His pastor, Rob McCoy, with whom he founded Turning Point Faith, sent me this statement. Charlie Kirk was my friend. So this is a personal statement that she got from Rob McCoy, which is Charlie's pastor. Although, that's another thing. He had a lot of pastors. Like, you'll see what I mean by this as we keep going. Charlie Kirk was my friend, and I was his pastor. I want to simply say this regarding Candace Owens. Charlie Kirk was a friend to Candace and never publicly spoke poorly of her, though he disagreed with her. He never operated nor entertained gossip or innuendo concerning Candace. My only comment I offer regarding Candace is this. I only wish that at this tragic time of mourning, she would be the friend to Charlie that he was to her. He would never have treated Candace or her family in such a way had, God forbid, this tragedy been hers. A friend loves at all times, Proverbs 17, whatever. And Proverbs 17. I don't mean to gloss over the scriptures there. But I'm switching it back over so that we can talk about that clip. So the thing is that Candace definitely is a weirdo in some regards. I don't watch her show, but every time somebody sends me a clip, there's almost every single time there's something that makes you cringe, and wonder why on earth did she say that? Yeah, like the context, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to give her airtime, so I didn't like pick up the clip. But, and also it takes a lot of work to like get these clips together. So I'm selective anyway in what I grab.
Yeah.
But she basically said that, you know, Charlie was praying rosaries. She said he was going to mass. Well, that's not anything new. We had pictures of him going to mass, and he would tell people to go to mass at his rallies anyway. So the only thing she said was that he was praying rosaries. And then she references the clip that we're going to play of him talking about Mary. And other than the rosary comment, those are all public things. Mm-hmm. So like for Meg Basham to say, this is completely false. It's like, well, for those of us who are Catholic converts watching this, like even our own story, when we started to come onto this podcast and start telling like doing the podcast, friends of ours who had already converted watched our show and said, he's going to convert before I even said anything.
Well, and it was, and there are some telltale things that happen in the life of a convert. Even someone who is saying, I would never convert, I'll never convert. Right. There are just these key indicators that you can see happening in the heart of a person. And so, for example, in the case of one friend, 5 years before we became Catholic, this couple, they were speculating about us coming into the Catholic Church.
Who was that?
I don't want to say names
Why
right
can't
now.
you say first names?
Summer and Brian.
Oh no! Oh, okay.
Yeah,
5 years?
Yeah, because it was as soon as we became Anglican. So we became Anglican,
Yes.
and they said, "Yep, this is the reasonable trajectory. Give it enough time, they will eventually be Catholic."
Yep.
So
here's another little article here, and then we're gonna play a clip. So, am I up there? Yeah, we got it. All right, there we go. So this is another one that's been going around. We're going to talk about this article, and then we're going to play this clip from Joe Heschmeyer about why we should not underestimate God drawing somebody into the church. So this says, Charlie Kirk to a California bishop, quote, I'm close to becoming Catholic. And that was written on September 18th, 2025. And a lot of people just shared this around. And they did not share the actual quotes from the article, so I went and grabbed them for this podcast. Excuse me. So here the author says, one was a recent video. Says there's two things that Kirk had done that made him think that Charlie was going to become Catholic. And one was this video. I'm going to take us off of there so you guys can see the whole thing. One was a recent video Kirk made suggesting to his Protestant co-religionists. I've never heard that word referred.
Never heard that before, yeah.
So,
normally just call them our fellow Protestants.
Or fellow Christian brothers.
Yeah,
co-religionists.
That's a stretch.
Yeah.
We're making up words at this point, folks.
You're hurting the credibility of the argument. That they did not give the Blessed Mother her due. It was a video that could have been shown in a Catholic school religion class. That is not true. Yeah, that is not true.
We think maybe. Well, anyway.
Only if you clip for like the first 45 seconds. But as soon as a kid goes and that's the thing. Just real quick. I just want to switch to me real fast. All right. So it drives me nuts when Christians will do this. I don't care if you're Catholic or Protestant. You are in the era of the internet. Okay. If you clip something for 45 seconds and then say, this is great for young people in a Catholic school context or a evangelical context, and you play this video for them and you think they're not going to go look up and find out where this person is at in their religious life, like you are being completely and totally imprudent. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Okay. So wait, do you want to put it on both of us real quick?
Yeah.
No, it just makes me think of that time it was Easter Sunday.
That's exactly what I'm thinking about.
So it was Easter Sunday. We were at a very large church, very large Protestant church, and the pastor used a clip of what's the name of the woman?
The lady from the Vampire Diaries or whatever?
Yeah, it's like, the vampire, the ones they made movies about, I think.
Yeah. No, it's not Twilight.
No, the Vampire Diaries or Diary of the Vampire, whatever, something.
Interview with the Vampire.
Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah.
See, they did make a movie off
Yeah,
that
they
one.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow, but It was Easter Sunday, and
Yeah.
the pastor shows a clip of that
Yeah.
author. And I think it was part of like the I Am Second
Yes.
campaign or
Yep.
something, and it was supposed to encourage everyone.
It's like,
and
hey,
they're-
cool, people believe in Jesus too, which is
Yeah.
always a red flag.
Yeah. So then you can share what happened
Yeah,
next.
so then like he plays this clip and it's very moving. It's like he's like, I became a Christian and I, came to Jesus or whatever. And I was like, man, I don't know, man. That seems like a stretch. The Vampire Diaries lady like becomes like
So right there in
so
the
yeah.
auditorium.
So I pulled out my smartphone and I just Googled the author and I was
And
like, is
Christianity.
she still a Christian? And the first article that popped up was, while she had a moment of conversion, she eventually got so fed up with organized religion, she decided that Christianity was not for her.
Yeah,
Like,
and it just walked away.
Yeah.
Walked away from organized
yeah,
religion.
it's
And-
like, dude, like at least have like somebody do some research for 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and especially with AI now, you don't have any excuse. So anyway, coming back to this, and let me see if I can get this back up. There we go. I'm getting to be a pro.
Rocking and rolling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There we go.
There it is.
Okay. So we have this thing, and he says, whoever this person is says that this video that's just not true. The other piece of evidence that showed up was a personal exchange between Charlie Kirk and a Catholic bishop who happens to be my brother. Okay.
Oh,
So
boy.
did you know that?
No.
Yeah,
Talk
okay.
about using some.
Yeah.
Internal
He's
information.
clearly close to this bishop, okay? Bishop Joseph Brennan of Fresno, the bishop has given me permission to divulge the content of that conversation between him and Charlie Kirk. So this is not like, some subtle thing here, okay? So let's just roll with me here for a second. A little more than a week before his murder, Kirk attended a pro-life prayer breakfast. So this is a week before he is going to be shot. Pro-life prayer breakfast in Visalia, California, which is the Diocese of Fresno. The bishop was among those in attendance and had a brief, private moment with Kirk. It was there that Kirk told the bishop about his Catholic wife and children and how he attended Mass with them. Also important. He punctuated this conversation with, I love my Catholic pastor. As they were parting to attend the more public portion of the prayer breakfast, Kirk mentioned speculation regarding his contemplating entering the Catholic Church, saying, I'm this close, whatever that means. So when we look at this, let me get back to where we're supposed to be here. Hold on. Okay, there we go.
There we
we
are.
got it. All right. When we look at this, this whole thing, we find that there's a lot here. Okay, so that's an important detail that this bishop said. Hey, he said I'm this close. I'm assuming he said. Now I want to play the clip that Joe Heschmeyer. So we're going to take a little bit of a detour. This is a clip from Catholic apologist Joe Heschmeyer. And, go back. Okay. So here's a clip from Joe Heschmeyer, if I can get it to actually pause. And I'm going to come back over here and we're going to go back onto the switcher and we're going to switch to one.
Look at that.
All right. So I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think
that
that's
looks
pretty
fine.
good.
All right. Let us know in the comments. So Joe here is going to talk about two Protestants who didn't convert to Catholicism, but they did actually convert to Orthodoxy, is the one he's going to talk about in this clip, and another one converted to Anglicanism. It was largely due to their research on the topic of church history. So he's going to explain. Is it coming through over there? I don't think it is.
No, it's not.
All right, hold on. Let me
You know
get
what
this
you need
up.
to do? You need to go to the master. Go to the master audio.
Yeah, hold on.
And then make sure it's turned on. Or cam 1. Cam 1. The audio's on?
Yeah, but I think I forgot to change the sound. I remember now.
Oh, boy.
Hold on. I got you.
We're on an adventure, everybody.
Okay, I think we got it now. Let me
Think
try.
so?
Welcome back to Shameless
Yep.
Potpourri.
Yep.
There we go. All right, so we're good. Okay, hold
But now
on.
we got your face faded into. Oh, there's my face faded into.
Yeah, it's all right. We're doing all right. Everybody's going to be fine here. There we go. All right, so I'm going to play this clip of
Welcome back to
Joe
Shameless
Heschmeyer.
Potpourri. I'm Joe Heschmeyer, and I want to explore two maybe seemingly unrelated conversions today, neither of which, interestingly, are to Catholicism, but I think you'll see why I'm still excited about both of them, why I think they might be directionally correct. and why I think they have some really important things to say about the future of a movement within Protestantism to try to shore up its historical bona fides. So the first of them is a YouTuber, Cleave to Antiquity, Pastor Ben, who until very recently was making a lot of pro-Protestant, but mostly just anti-Catholic and anti-Orthodox content. Like, it was less, here are some positive principles of Protestantism we all agree on, and much more just like, here's a scandal in the Catholic Church, here's a controversial thing the Orthodox do. And then a funny thing happened as he was doing this.
If you're going to consider becoming Eastern Orthodox, then you have to get comfortable with the fact that you will have to then think that every Christian you've ever met who was not Eastern Orthodox is going to hell.
Several months later.
Good morning and welcome to Cleave to Antiquity. My name is Ben, and if you've seen the thumbnail and you've seen the title, then you know that I've decided to become Orthodox.
Ben's conversion, announcing that he's becoming Eastern Orthodox, was shocking, to say the least. And as a...
Okay, just so that you can see what's over there on that side, which I don't think you can right now, but look at the clips over here. These are videos that he had posted. These documents disprove papal supremacy. Too far, Protestant mocks the Virgin Mary in response to Catholic apologists. Shocking footage of Jubilee Vatican pilgrimage released. She deserved to be, that's a horrible one, discussing R.C. Sproul, horrific arguments. Conservative Catholics, worst nightmare just became reality. The massive Pope Leo scandal just got much worse. Like, he's obviously like digging into this stuff.
He's stoking the fires of anti-Catholicism.
Oh.
Welcome back to Shem's Popery. I'm Joe Heschmeyer.
Then think that every Christian you've ever...
I'm going to get into later. This is actually something we should all take away from that, which is, don't assume that because someone's very hostile to Catholicism or... Welcome back to Shem's Popery. I'm Joe Head. He's becoming Eastern Orthodox. Was shocking, to say the least. And as I'm going to get into later, this is actually something we should all take away from that, which is
right here.
Don't assume that because someone's very hostile to Catholicism or Orthodoxy or whatever you are, that means that they're not considering it. Sometimes people who are raging the most, it's because they're putting up an intellectual fight because they're trying to work through their own objections. They don't always want to show you that. They don't want to necessarily be that vulnerable, but that's sometimes what's happening. And so I'm encouraged by the fact that in a 6-video stretch, 5 of his videos a few weeks ago were just things about Catholicism. That much time and energy about like, oh, what about Catholicism? And maybe I've disproved it this time. And then a week later, maybe I've disproved it this time. That's good in a real way. If it's him working through his objections and, God willing, coming all the way home to Catholicism. But either way, him going from being Protestant to Orthodox is undoubtedly a move in the right direction. He will have valid sacraments. And as we're going to see, he has had to abandon a huge chunk of his own arguments for things like sola scriptura. More on him in a minute.
All right. So that's the first one that I wanted to talk about. And I think it'll switch over to us. There we go. That's the key takeaway, is that not everybody wants to be as honest about what's going on in their internal battle about whether or not Catholicism is true.
Well, and I kind of wanted to be here just to offer, a little commentary on our journey into the church, because you're much more talkative about things you're working through and stuff, and you're not opposed to telling people, yeah, I'm considering this or I'm reading about this. And I'm not that way. I am like a closed book when it comes to me having to contemplate that my whole life in Christian foundation was, built on something that I'm questioning now. Yeah. And so anyway, I very much relate to the people who were, maybe I wasn't throwing up, walls. I wasn't making YouTube videos trying to debunk Catholicism, but I definitely wasn't like jumping up and down celebrating that I was open to Catholicism.
Yeah. I mean, like, at the end of the day, I think the better thing to talk about is the fact that we would sit there with our friends and we told them, yeah, like, I'm reading the catechism right now.
Right.
And they would come over and I'd say, yeah, I just can't figure out, how Catholics get around this. You can actually go through the catechism I own that I was reading when I became Catholic. And there are still notes in there that say, yeah, disagree with this, like,
yeah. Yep.
I mean, the reality is that becoming Catholic is not is not like a straight shot road where you're just like, oh, well, because he says this, he's going to do that. Were you going to say something else?
No, I totally agree with you. And in a lot of cases, like in my case, there was this process of studying and reading and praying, and then it was like a lightning bolt moment where you're like, oh my goodness, this has to be true, and I can't go. And once that lightning bolt hits, you're like, I can't go backwards anymore, because every other piece just crumbles along with the bolt itself.
Right. Well, and there's dread.
Yes.
There is dread because you know that you are, by becoming Catholic, you are saying everyone in your Christian circle, your identity as Catholic now says everybody who's Protestant is wrong in some aspect.
Right.
Not in everything.
Right.
But they are not the denomination that Christians are supposed to be in. That's why it's so hard, because when you become Catholic, and every person who has converted to Catholicism from Protestantism will say this, I did not want to become Catholic.
Yeah.
And that's a very confusing thing.
Yep.
Because you're being pulled in a direction where, suddenly people are like giving you arguments, and you're like, I don't think that's a good argument. I don't think it's a good argument. So I want to talk about Charlie Kirk's famous Venerate Mary clip, which is going to be right here. I'm going to set this up real quick. And this is the clip that everybody has been circulating out of context. We are going to look at it in full. This is Charlie answering a question from a caller, which is very important.
Hello, Charlie.
To note.
Good to talk to you.
He's answering a question from a caller about Marian dogmas in the Catholic Church. So that, as far as I know, no one's actually played that in context. So let's listen to what the actual conversation was. And I've cut it a little bit just for the sake of time, because it goes on for a while. So I got it down to like 2 minutes. But here's what he is asking Charlie.
I watched your video with Michael Knowles debating Catholic versus Protestant. Your argument was the best argument I've heard on this subject. I'm a Protestant like you and have been listening to the Michael Knowles show for years. And he is a great guy. But sometimes Michael Knowles is so Catholic, he could have been the new Pope. I know. I'm glad you laughed at that one. I know, Charlie, a lot of Catholics are real Christians, including Michael Knowles. But we are the people of the Bible. And Catholic theology can be like Swiss cheese. Lots of holes. Their obsession with Mary is completely unbiblical. I used to go to the Crystal Cathedral in Garden Grove, California, once in a while, and then they were sold to the Catholic Church. And in the prayer room I used to use, they now have a crystal sculpture of Mother Mary at the center of the prayer room where you can kneel and pray to Mary, plus a 20-foot tall statue of Mary in the courtyard titled Mary, Queen of Heaven. I don't know exactly where this Mariology comes from.
I love it. First of all, thank you for being a member. You've actually hit on one of my major concerns of Catholicism. And I mean, look, I love Catholics. As people know, I'm very close to even my local Catholic priest, Father Klein, great guy. My wife was baptized Catholic, but I have some big disagreements with Catholicism. And the first of which would be Mariology. But let me first say, I think we as Protestant evangelicals under-venerate Mary. She was very important. She was a vessel for our Lord and Savior. I think that we as evangelicals and Protestants, we've overcorrected. We don't talk about Mary enough. We don't venerate her enough. Mary was clearly important to early Christians. There's something there. In fact, I believe one of the ways that we fix toxic feminism in America is Mary is the solution. Have more young ladies be pious, be reverent, to be full of faith, slow to anger, slow to words at times. Mary is a phenomenal example, and I think a counter to so much of the toxicity of feminism in the modern era.
Okay, so that is the clip that the Catholics have really enjoyed sharing around. And clearly it looks like he's pushing the Marian.
Yeah.
Rightly so. First of all, I will just say this right now. There is not a Protestant out there that I have ever met in my life who stayed Protestant, who started going to Mass, had Catholic priests that they said were my priest, my Catholic priest. Like didn't have any, I've never met anyone who goes to Mass on a regular basis, claims a priest as their own,
starts using language like venerate and talks about Mary as the solution to a sinful problem. And then, if he's praying a rosary, let's just grant that for a minute. Let's just say Candace is right. Like, it's not hard to be like, okay. But he also has like St. Michael medallions around his neck, and we just lost our ATEM, so hopefully it will reconnect.
Ooh,
all right,
there
we're
it
good.
Is. Hooray.
I don't know any Protestant who stays Catholic for very long that's doing those things, but I know plenty of Protestants who do those things, say the things that Charlie is about to hear, you're about to hear in the second clip, and then become Catholic. Yeah. So that's the thing you have to understand with Catholics who are saying, oh, I think Charlie would have definitely become a Catholic. Were you going to say anything?
Oh, it's just, I can think of maybe one person, but you
don't have to say their name.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, I can think of maybe one person that continued that.
I'll say his name, Father Beckman.
There you go.
There you go. So, he's an Anglican priest.
Yeah, but
he goes to adoration occasionally.
But I would also say that even thinking of him, for example, he has a deep love for Catholics and for Catholicism, even if he never becomes Catholic. Like it's a much more charitable position of seeing the Catholic Church compared to the typical Protestant.
Yep. And I think that's an argument for the Protestants.
Yeah.
That like, if you're friendly to Catholicism and see them primarily as an ally, and I think you can make that argument.
Yeah.
If you say, well, I just think that he wanted an alliance with Catholics, I think that's very plausible. Yeah. Because he knew that he needed them for the movement. So he's really trying to make sure that he's staying true to what he believes while keeping them on there. John MacArthur could not run TPUSA.
Yeah.
So here we're going to look at this next clip here.
I would say...
So here's the next clip. And
is this part of the same video?
This is the same video.
Okay.
And the video is Charlie continuing his response. And this is the part that all the Protestants are sharing around the internet in full context.
Catholicism goes way too far. Catholicism believes two things as dogma. And most Catholics, if you ask them this, some don't even know. Number one, do you believe that Mary was sinless? The Catholic Church does. There is no biblical basis for this, the only of which would be that Mary was full of grace in the Annunciation of Mary in Luke 1. That is a big stretch. By the way, that was not even added into official Catholic dogma till the mid-1800s. The second of which which is called the Immaculate Conception. There's a second form of Catholic dogma that believes that Mary was assumed into heaven, that her physical body was actually the Assumption of Mary, was assumed into heaven. Again, that is a pure faith claim. It is not biblically supported at all whatsoever. So I think that we as evangelicals can do a better job of...
Just real quick, I do want to say, if the Bible is silent on an issue, then both parties are making a faith claim. There is also no evidence to say that she was not assumed, because the Bible just doesn't speak to it.
Yeah.
So... this is an example of, Charlie was great. He was 100% on top of the debate, but he was very fast on his feet, which I think is where a lot of his gifting came from. And I mean, I'm sure that if I was in a debate with him, he would have crushed me. But to that point, just because the Bible doesn't say something happened doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Remembering, studying, talking about, and pointing towards Mary, because she was a vessel chosen by God Almighty that brought our Lord into this world. But I find biblical evidence to the opposite. This is not a major issue for me between me getting along with Catholics, me loving Catholics, me thinking that Catholics are doing a great job for the planet or for the world. But I personally would not be able to enter into a faith that believes that anybody except Jesus Christ our Lord was without sin. And that's my final comment on Mariology. Happy to debate it with others if that ever surfaces. So again, we're also here on the Charlie Kirk Show. We're very ecumenical. I just want to say again, Catholics are just fabulous in so many different ways. They fight for life. They fight for marriage. They fight against transgenderism. I have three major theological disagreements with Catholicism. It's not a mystery. I talk about it publicly. The first of which would be the infallibility of the Pope and the whole process and the idea of the Vatican. The second of which is Mariology, and the third of which is just less important, but it's transubstantiation. I do not hold that view.
All right. So a lot there.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that he says transubstantiation is less important than those other things. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I'm still stuck on my
Are you?
thing.
Uh oh.
It's not going to video follows audio. Oh,
You gotta
reconnected.
click the-
That's why.
yeah, you gotta click
Video
the button.
follows audio. We had a disconnect here for a second.
There
Okay,
we go.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Whew, that was close. No, a lot is there. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just saying that I just thought it was interesting. In my mind, if you can prove transubstantiation, everything else is kind of a moot point, like what we've talked about in private before. And so I just thought it was funny, not funny, haha, but surprising that he is like, oh, and kind of on the, tail end there, transubstantiation, that he has such a hang up with the Pope and with Mary.
Right.
And does not see the transubstantiation thing.
Right. There is an argument here that I think Catholics can use with Protestants who love Jesus, which is if the Eucharist really is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus, and let's just say hypothetically that the Catholic Church is wrong about Marian doctrines, but they're right about the Eucharist. In other words, they're just like every other denomination out there.
Yeah. Got some things right.
Got some things right,
wrong.
got some things wrong. But what they definitely have right is the Eucharist.
Yeah.
They're the only ones who have that doctrine now.
Yeah.
No one else has that doctrine. If they are right about that, then you have a obligation as a Christian to be in that church, because that is where Jesus actually is, in actuality, not in a spiritual presence, but an actual transubstantiation, like the essence of God is in that place under the veil of bread and wine, in the same way that his deity was under the veil of human flesh. So, and it's interesting because a lot of the arguments that everybody made against Jesus being the Son of God are all the same arguments that Protestants make about the Eucharist. Like, well, if he looks like a man, he doesn't look like God, and if we take a piece of his hair and we look at it under a microscope, we're not going to see God, or it's not going to glow. So what are we supposed to do with that? So anyway, but I do think that like that last little tail in there, like, transubstantiation isn't a big deal for me, but it's one of the things, and I'm open about that. I just think that actually shows that he was a lot closer than he thought. And we will get into the response now of Andrew Colvett, I think is his name.
I'm not going to be able to help you on that one.
I don't know. But Andrew Colvett is, he gives his talk right here. I'm about to pull it up here. Hold on. He's going to
I think that's interesting. You got
it. All right. So let me pull up our camera here. So this is Andrew. This is the executive producer of the Charlie Kirk show. And the clip that was going around was, is Charlie going to be Catholic? And he says no. And that was part of the stinger or the trailer for this episode. And it's very clear, again, if you are someone who converted to Catholicism and you hear his answer, you're going to say, well, why would you say all that stuff if he wasn't going to become Catholic? So I'm going to play this clip.
Catholics claiming him and the evangelicals claiming him. And
was he becoming Catholic?
No. But he really loved Catholic Mass. He loved the ritual of it. He loved the beauty of old Catholic churches and the stained glass.
And him and Erica would go sometimes.
Yeah, well, Erica's a cradle Catholic, but she ended up kind of like me. I grew up Catholic and First Communion and went to Catholic high school, but then I ended up becoming a Christian in college through a Protestant church, through a non-denominational kind of more experience. It was actually Presbyterian, and then it was kind of non-denominational. And I think Erica kind of follows that same path. She and I share that.
Also, by the way, I just want to draw attention to, she's posted a photo of her and Charlie and the kids in Mass before, and somebody in the comment section said, oh, are you guys converting? And she said, no, we just like attending sometimes. So she herself had said no.
Yeah,
publicly.
and I think Charlie, one of the things, Charlie really hated worshiping in like a gym, or some sort of kind of blank space that you just turn into church. There's no problem. He didn't have a problem with the act of that. He just didn't prefer it. And he loved, again, the ritual, the ancient, feel of a Catholic Mass, and the fact that everybody around the world that was worshiping as Catholic he loved that. So he had some really big theological hangups with that. You can go check the videos out, him debating with Michael Knowles, in good fun. I mean, they were dear friends, but they loved kind of debating the whole Protestant versus Catholic thing.
So,
Okay, so were you going to say something?
No, go for it.
No, you go for it. Ladies first.
I don't actually know if I had a thought. So
That's okay.
You go.
I'm just going to say that every single person who has ever converted to the Catholic faith said all those things. And if you replace the word Catholic Church or anything Catholic there, and you were to say, like, I don't know, that he's like thinking about buying a car, right? Oh, he loves it, but he loves this, he loves that. Or if it's a guy like dating a girl, like, oh yeah, I love her, but like she's got these kind of problems, I just don't really know. It's like every single Catholic convert will say all of those things. Like everybody's heard them. You can watch the testimonies of people who have come into the Catholic Church and like go watch what's good? Oh, Pints with Aquinas. That's what it is. Go watch any Pints with Aquinas episode with prominent Bible scholars who became Catholic. Every single one of them will say, yeah, I just found myself, like Scott Hahn comes to mind.
Right.
Dr. Bergsma. These are Bible scholars who were in the Reformed tradition there that Andrew mentioned. And one, I think, was Reformed Baptist, and the other one was, I think Scott Hahn was.
Jay Budushevsky.
Oh, Jay Budushevsky. Yeah, he's a little more complicated.
Okay.
But, like, at the end of the day, you've got a lot more in common at this point. Like, and this is after everything has gone on. Like, you have a lot more in common with people who have come into the faith than people who have stayed out of it at this point, based on just on what Andrew said in this clip.
Yeah.
So, like,
that's a great point.
At the end of the day, yes, people will say no. Yes, people will say we're not, like, even Erica, I've seen that picture of her responding, no, we just like to go to Mass. That is exactly what we would have said.
Yeah.
Like, we started just visiting Catholic churches because we just liked them better. The smells and the bells and the music and everything was so peaceful and quiet, and the prayers.
I even remember at one point saying, I may never become Catholic, but I'll go to a Catholic church so that my kids can experience having, for example, men at the front of the church and having beauty around them. There were things like that I was like...
And reverence.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, well... if I have to pick between just sitting and being a vagabond in the Catholic Church, but never being Catholic, I'll just do that.
I mean, I've asked Protestants before, like, of all intellectual levels, PhDs all the way down to lay people, if you have to choose between going to the woke Presbyterian church down the road or the Episcopal church and a Catholic church, which one are you going to go to? Conservative Catholic church or a liberal Protestant church? Which one are you going to pick? And they'll say the Catholic one every time because they know that the moral teachings there are going to be sound. They know that that's going to be a better place for them and their family, even if they don't agree with everything.
Right.
And so I think that the problem here is that, and you can kind of see them in the video there, like, well, it's kind of complicated. I mean, again, they will say these things to say, well, he was friendly with Catholicism. But what I want to focus on from the Catholic perspective is every single Catholic convert who has written a book will say exactly what Andrew said in that clip. And the reality is that more Protestants who say that end up Catholic than those who don't.
Yes.
Now, that's okay. If people say, well, I like to go to Mass too. I've been going for a long time. Okay, that's fine. But you are in the minority of Protestants who go to Mass and don't become Catholic.
Yes.
100%. Of Protestants who say venerate Mary and don't become Catholic.
Yeah.
Of Protestants who say, I don't agree with the Marian dogmas, but I really like the idea of going and praying in a Catholic church.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm going to start wearing a St. Michael, the Archangel medallion. Just because.
Great segue.
Because
that is our next clip.
St. Michael.
So, here's one thing that I want to show you here, and I'm going to actually go in reverse. So, this is a New York Times article. Erica Kirk, husband's life cut short by violence he seemed to foresee.
Put it up there
oh, sorry. Thank you. Yeah. good thing you're here.
See, look at that.
All right. So here is what it says. This is Erica Kirk talking about what happened. And around her neck is a pendant of St. Michael that her husband was wearing. This
when
is
he was shot.
Right. So, like, and again, I don't think we need to dwell on that.
I'm sorry.
It's,
all I'm saying is that
Yeah.
yes, you're right. But.
So, but at the end of the day, all that is to point out that when Protestants are saying it's completely false that Charlie would have even considered becoming Catholic, this is what Catholics need to remember as they say it. It's not that we think that Charlie was secretly becoming Catholic or he was hiding things from his friends or his wife or any of these things. It is that Charlie was basically, and I'm kind of going to switch over here so people can see my face here. Oh, there we go. Charlie was not hiding things. He was just being drawn like the rest of us have been. It is a pull that is not easy to articulate as you go, because you just feel like, well, there's this thing over here that I really like, and you kind of want to pick and choose the things of Catholicism that you like. And the more you pick, the more you're like, man, but I really do kind of think the rosary is pretty cool. Wow, that's a cool looking rosary. You know what? I think I would like a rosary, you know? Well, what is this story of St. Maximilian Kolbe? You know, what did he do? And you start to read about the saints, and suddenly you're like, man, I wouldn't mind having a picture of a saint. He has a cool story. And
especially just that one.
Yeah, just that one
saint.
Yeah, and so the St. Michael medallion is not a inconsistent piece of evidence here that shows that he was being drawn. And again, I think that language is important. I don't think Catholics can say he was going to convert. We don't know that. But it's very clear that he was being drawn. And that's just using the evidence surrounding the last 2 weeks of his memorial. I mean, even at the Turning Point USA, Phil Wickham had a miraculous medal around his neck.
Yeah, and Brandon Lake was wearing a Sacred Heart of Jesus medal on his chest.
That's what it looked like anyway.
If it wasn't, then by all means, Brandon Lake, send us a picture of the jewelry that you were wearing up close.
Yeah,
because
it certainly
all the
looked
cameras
like Sacred.
were grabbing.
I mean, it could be something that he had made for himself. I mean, maybe he's got some sort of cool little heart.
Then it's
fire
just
logo.
a heart with fire and
the Catholics
crown of
will never
thorns
sue him
around
for
it.
copyright.
Yeah,
you know?
well,
but that's okay. So this is the last clip. And this is Michael Knowles. Michael Knowles was the opener for Turning Point USA.
For their college
tour. And I'm going to turn off us there so that you can see the whole thing. And this is him standing there giving tribute to Charlie Kirk. He's an awesome guy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for being here tonight. This event was originally supposed to be a conversation between me and Charlie. Now it will be a conversation about Charlie. It will be a conversation about his life and what his assassination means for our country. The enemies of civilization, the assassin, as well as the people who excused and cheered him on, thought that they could stop Charlie Kirk's movement. In reality, they have not even stopped his lecture tour. I would like to begin, if you would indulge me, with a prayer. Charlie had a great affinity for St. Michael the Archangel, and I think the St. Michael prayer speaks especially to our moment. In the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. St. Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our defense against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen.
All right. So, first of all, if you have not heard Michael Knowles talk at that Turning Point speech, you should totally go and watch it.
was incredible. It is top shelf Michael Knowles. If you have never heard of him, it's a great place to start. But the thing that I want to draw our attention to as we talk about this topic is kind of shifting towards the Protestants now. So we've talked that the Catholics have their argument for why we think that, you know, it's better to say Charlie was being drawn to the Catholic faith, even if he wasn't fully aware of that. And I think that's fair to say. But Protestants who are acting like this would betray the Christian faith, or would say Charlie would never do that because the Catholic Church doesn't preach the gospel, those are not good arguments to make for your own case of honoring Charlie. Because Charlie saw Catholics as Christians. He just saw them as having disagreements. So he did not share John MacArthur's views of Catholics as not being Christians. Like, these are the kinds of things where I think we have to be willing to recognize when our what would you call it? Our disagreements with another group are taking us into an immoral position or a complete and total inconsistency with our own views. And I'll give you just one example. If you're an evangelical that believes that as long as you believe in Jesus, you shall be saved. All right, well, then all the Catholics are saved. Like, every single one. Mm-hmm. They're just in error on your view. And therefore, if Charlie was going to become a Catholic, that doesn't mean he's not a Christian.
Right.
This is very clear, even by the standards of Pastor Rob McCoy's preaching of the gospel, or Frank Turek's preaching of the gospel. All of those things would say, well, Catholics are just in error, but they still believe in Jesus. And they state that they believe the Nicene Creed every day. Every time they're in Mass, they say, I believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. They say they believe in who Jesus was. They believe in the resurrection. They believe in the Holy Spirit. They believe in all the things that you believe in.
Yeah.
So if you start saying, well, I don't think that Charlie would ever become a Catholic because at the end of the day, that would mean he wasn't Christian. Well, that's not good, because there's a lot of evidence to show that he might have. And now, if you ever saw that evidence, you have to either turn a blind eye and say it's not evidence and you guys are all making stuff up, but we're clearly not. Because, again, how many of you who think that Catholics are not Christians think it's okay for a Protestant to wear a St. Michael medallion around their neck?
Yeah.
Or to have an, quote, affinity for St. Michael, the archangel.
Right.
So at the end of the day, was Charlie Kirk going to become Catholic? I don't know. If he had another 5 years, I would probably say he probably was going to be.
Yeah, you were a betting man.
Yeah. If I was betting, I would say he probably was. But Meg Basham and those types of accounts that are out there saying it's completely false,
right,
just doesn't know about prominent Protestants who converted to the Catholic faith. Because if you just read Scott Hahn's story and then you watch the clips we played tonight,
right,
you're going to have to conclude that Charlie was at least being drawn.
He was at least being open to this leading of the Holy Spirit and all of those things. Well,
and that's a great argument there too. Like, obviously, Charlie, if he was convinced that the Catholic faith was true, he would have become Catholic.
Yeah.
Because that's the type of person he was.
Right.
So all we have is that he just wasn't convinced that Catholicism was true yet.
Yeah.
But he certainly enjoyed some of the practices, according to Andrew.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you have anything else you want to say?
I was thinking actually still about one of the previous things that we saw in an earlier video where Charlie Kirk was bringing up, this is just more of an apologetics point. He brought up that the dogma about the Immaculate Conception didn't come around until the 1800s.
Yeah.
And listen, the whole Immaculate Conception, while it seemed strange to me when we were first reading about Catholicism, to me that was far from being the biggest barrier to me for the Catholic Church. But I remember once I started reading into it, I had never understood that, okay, in the Catholic Church, like, they only create dogmas when there's a need to respond to a problem. Just like raising that as an issue, like, oh, well, it was never believed in the Catholic Church and this is a recent dogma. Well, it's like saying, well, yeah, my kid wasn't driving until they were 16, so I didn't have rules about curfew and when to be home with the car until that started becoming something that was being discussed as a family. Well, the Immaculate Conception was accepted by even Luther, and was it Zwingli? I don't remember who all.
Zwingli didn't, but
yeah, okay, but it was Luther and Calvin.
Well, it
I'm
was their
pretty sure.
perpetual virginity.
It was her it was her perpetual virginity.
Yeah.
But this was, I mean, this has been part of the teachings of the early church, and it's just been sitting in the back of my mind for anyone who's listening who thinks like, yeah, Charlie Kirk's got great arguments for why you should never be Catholic. There's really good arguments.
Well, and I don't think he was even trying to do that. I think he was just trying to be honest about what he thought.
Yeah.
And I don't fault him for doing that. And I think that at the end of the
absolutely.
day, you make arguments based off of what you know.
Yeah.
And let's just be honest, like Charlie was arguing a lot of things that the Catholic social teaching was already taken care of, but that he was researching on his own.
Yeah.
If there's one argument for becoming Catholic, it's that you can argue for the things that Charlie Kirk was arguing for as a Catholic from the dogmas of the church.
Yes.
Not from philosophy texts.
Yeah. Yep.
And, it makes it a lot easier to go the route of the Catholic Church, I think, on a lot of these things than it is to, try and figure out what St. Thomas Aquinas is trying to say.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, in summary, I think that Charlie was on his way. Even if he didn't know it, I think that I would not be surprised that if later on, when all things have settled down, that because we didn't even talk about the fact that apparently they called the Catholic priest because they found out about.
Oh yeah,
according to Megyn Kelly, that clip's been going around too, that there was a witch who was doing curses on Charlie before this event, and they called a priest, according to Megyn Kelly. So again, assuming that's true, that's unusual.
Yeah.
Like, why would you call a Catholic priest?
Yeah.
Like you should just
call
a Protestant church, or just pray yourself.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of things there that I think are problematic when it comes to just looking at it from purely the evidences and comparing that evidence with anyone else who's converted.
Yeah.
Catholics should say Charlie was being drawn into the church. We don't know if he would have converted, but he was clearly being drawn.
Yep. And he was, it looks like following some of those drawings.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Protestants should not be disappointed on that, because it's not like he's not a Christian if he does. And most people are not Candace out there trying to profit off of Charlie's death and speculation around his faith. Like, most of us are not doing that.
Yeah.
It's just like, you're a public figure. You said these public things. The news is reporting these things. Your friends are saying these things. Okay, well, you've put those out into the public.
Yeah.
Like, we get to talk about them as a result. And people can talk about this too. So anyway, that's the story. That's all we have. We're going to be back on here tomorrow night. I'm going to be talking about Triumph of the Heart. We're going to be talking about whatever else we feel like talking about in the news.
Yeah.
And
I will not be here, though.
You won't be here. It will be my friend Brian Zappia, who's working on, he's been on the podcast before. He's working on a book on usury, so I'm really looking forward to it, because he seems to be able to find usury in just about everything. This will be the first time he's been on a live stream. So I'm very excited to see what we end up doing.
It's the time for anyone who's interested in usury to come bring your questions.
It's true. Yeah.
Tomorrow night.
But anyway, you guys have a great night. Thank you for watching. God bless.